Letter 15. A respect for books is a respect for mankind. Dear Lady Mary, we both are very fortunate women, for we have chosen occupations that deal with the word. You, with your writing, put words down on paper to create literature. You have used your writing to present many of the ideals you believe in. Education for women and health issues, for example. I have dedicated my life to words as well, but in a different way. As a language teacher, I have taught people to learn words and to craft them into communication. And as a librarian, I ensure that these words are collected, preserved, and put into the hands, hearts, and minds of others. We are both very blessed indeed to be able to live in the world of words. Did you ever stroll in the rare book market in Istanbul, the Sahaflar? It is an open-air library filled with the most wonderful treasures a book lover could ever hope to discover. In a letter dated February 12, 1717, to your friend Alexander Pope, you relate your appreciation of Arabic poetry, taught to you by your friend Ahmed Effendi of Belgrade, through the riches of his library. He has explained to me many pieces of Arabian poetry, which, I observed, are in numbers not unlike ours, generally alternate verse, and of a very musical sound. Their expressions of love are very passionate and lively. I am so much pleased with them. I really believe I should learn to read Arabic if I was to stay here a few months. He has a very good library of their books of all kinds, and, as he tells me, spends the greatest part of his life there. In Turkey, some of my most rewarding encounters have been with those who share my profession. Librarians are a very close-knit group in general, linked by commonly shared ideals. And these ideals are the same whether you are a librarian in Paris, New York, or Amasya. Whenever I travel, I visit libraries to admire their style, and I never fail to see something done differently, which I carry home for my own library. The Turkish word for library, kütüphane, translates as the house of books. I have had some remarkable meetings with remarkable librarians in some remarkable houses of books in Turkey. One such meeting was with the librarian in Amasya, who delighted in showing me a rare Koran dating from the 15th century, the oldest in Turkey, executed by the most famous Ottoman calligraphy master, Sheikh Hamdullah. When I told him that it was the oldest book I had ever held or touched, he taught me the Turkish saying, "To respect books is to respect mankind." Here again was another example of that overarching Turkish keyword, respect. Rarely have I heard such a simple concept summarize the motivation that made me become a librarian. For librarians do respect humanity at the highest level. I remember meeting Shireen Tekeli, the founder of the Women's Library in Istanbul, right after it opened in 1990. Her pride in what they were trying to accomplish was motivating and inspiring. Speaking in flawless French and English, she showed me the 5,000-volume collection housed in an artistically renovated madrasa, and explained how the librarians had devised their own classification system in order to make access of these highly specialized collections more user-friendly. This visit and discussion made me reconsider the traditional venues for the classification of collections and the presentation of information to the public, which has led me on a significant mission in my professional life. I did not, however, adopt for my library the heavy smoking allowed by the staff and readers. A visit to another Istanbul library was motivating in a different way, for there I met librarians who showed such enthusiasm and belief in their mission that you could not help but be inspired by them. Tucked behind the Mihrimah Sultan complex in Üsküdar, in one of the outbuildings of this complex built in 1543 by Sinan, is a tiny box of a public library. Even though it was closed, the librarian invited me in because I was a book sister. She spent the afternoon telling me how libraries like hers are important for the Gejakandu, slum children, and it is for them that she enthusiastically tackles everything, from restoring the building, cleaning the shelves, purchasing of new furniture, scrubbing the floors, and personally selecting and cataloging all the books. The library was modest and a tad shabby, but she acted as if she was showing me the Dolmabahce Palace. From her, I again realized that what is truly important in this business is service to readers, not the quantity or quality of the books on the shelves. Librarians in Turkey have always been ready to open their libraries and their hearts to me when I told them that I, too, was a librarian, the magical password to enter many libraries, archives, and collections. I remember remarkable visits with the librarians as the Üsküdar Şemsi Pasha Public Library of 25,000 volumes, where the head librarian offered me a copy of the Dewey Decimal Classification Schedules translated into Turkish to take home with me. Or the tiny public library in Urgup, proud with 30,000 volumes and 11 branch libraries that rotate over 10,000 books per year to neighboring villages. This library had a special corner in the children's section, a bookcase filled with young adult books on Ataturk. A spectacular collection of rare books was to be found in the library of Bedati Necip Pasha in Tira, built in 1397. This minister of ammunitions under Mahmud II brought back books from Baghdad in specially crafted red leather bookcases. I have seen other similar rare books in the Kayseri Reşit Efendi Kütüphanesi, next to the Ulu Kami. Once again, however, it was the special attention that Turkish librarians paid to their public that impressed me the most. At the public library in Aksaray, I was invited for a tour of the library of 30,000 volumes and was asked to sit in on a staff meeting, complete with tea and cakes, participated in a lively discussion, and was even treated to a spin in their bookmobile. I have been invited to sign the guest books in the İnegöl Library, housed in the madrasa of the İshak Pasha complex of 1482, and the Istanbul Kuprulu Library, as if I were a special dignitary. Once, when visiting the Beyazıt University Library in Istanbul, that famous radar of the Turks clicked in, and I was accosted, grabbed, and escorted into the director's office, with the clerk saying, "Oh yes, we could tell you were a librarian by the way you were scrutinizing the card catalog." A 2-hour visit ensued, with a procession of librarians called in to greet me, one of whom took me to show me the rare book collection and a Jalaluddin al-Rumi manuscript dating from 1690. And once a librarian, always a librarian. A rather deaf but dear retired librarian, Haki Bey, appeared out of nowhere upon a visit to the Karate Han and took it upon himself to be the official guide, since, as he informed me, he knew about knowledge, and of course knew he had to pass it on. However, the grandest of all library events I have experienced in Turkey was the 61st International Federation of Librarians Association, IFLA, annual conference in Istanbul in August of 1995. A fireball of a librarian named Altanay Serenikli, one of those glorious Turkish first names meaning golden moon, organized an IFLA Congress, the likes of which have not been seen since. The opening ceremonies, held in the Ataturk Cultural Center in Taksim, included speeches by the mayor of Istanbul, a representative of UNESCO, and the president of IFLA, and for the bouquet final, a presentation by Turkey's first Turkish culture minister, and my most beloved of teachers, Talat Said Halman, who whipped the crowd into a frenzy with his amusing speech containing no less than 16 of his famous puns. That evening, a reception fit for a sultan was held for us in a former Ottoman palace, the Chiran Hotel. Other evening festivities included a concert of folk dancing in the open-air theater below the Hilton, complete with a boxed picnic dinner of a cheese sandwich and the most delicious pear I have ever eaten. The next day, we were treated to a tour of several Istanbul libraries, the Topkapi Palace Manuscript Collection, the reserves of the Archaeological Museum, and your Ahmet III's library in Topkapi, with a closing concert of classical music at the Taksim Ataturk Center. Perhaps this does not sound all that exciting to you, but to me it was glorious. When the diminutive Altınay Hanım came on stage to open that first concert, she opened her arms wide and shouted out a resounding, "Welcome to my country," with a patriotic pride and sense of hospitality that could only have come from a Turk. The crowd went wild. I even once had a meeting with a friend of libraries long gone, Ibrahim Pasha. I met him in my imagination while strolling in the Nevşehir complex he built in 1726, which includes a mosque, a library, and a madrasa. Actually, I believe you may have met him in real life, Lady Mary. Ibrahim Pasha was both the son-in-law of your Sultan Ahmet III and his Grand Vizier. He designed Nevşehir in central Anatolia at the skirts of Cappadocia as a totally new town. He was an enlightened man who fostered the westernization of the Ottoman Empire through his contacts with France, and it was he who stimulated Ahmet III's interest in building, an interest which led to the construction of his Topkapi Library and the sumptuous fruit room apartments of the harem. He met, however, with a sad end, as he was executed by the Janissaries. Yet he lives on in this complex, built with an eminence of sight, and out of the distinctive yellow stone of the Cappadocia region. Oddly enough, it is the madrasa of the complex which now serves as the public library, complete with the obligatory statue of Ataturk in the middle. The original library is now used as a soup kitchen. The idea of service to the public is still clearly in evidence. Yet it was a visit to a small public library in Akşehir that stood out from the others. In the warm, late afternoon hour, a lovely young librarian tucked a basket of wrapped hard candies under her arm and went from reader to reader to offer each and every one of them a smile and a candy to accompany their reading. It was a small gesture, as sweet as that candy, a simple one, a respectful one. For as you remember, the way of hospitality, respect, and love is how they do things here in Turkey, even in houses of books. Sincerely yours in words, Kadriye Branning.